Hello and welcome to Gregory McDowell's analysis of a poem. I will be analyzing the poem Out, written by the renowned Robert Frost. The buzzsaw snarled and rattled in the yard, and made dust and dropped stove-length sticks of wood, sweet-scented stuff when the breeze drew across it, and from there those that lifted eyes could count 5 mountain ranges, one behind the other, under the sunset far into Vermont, and the saw snarled and rattled, as it ran light or had to bear a load. And nothing happened. Day was all but done. Call it a day. I wish they might have said to please the boy, by giving him the half hour that a boy counts so much when saved from work. His sister stood behind them in her apron to tell them supper. At the word, the saw, as if to prove saws knew what supper meant, leaped out of the boy's hand, or seemed to leap. He must have given the hand. However it was, neither refused the meeting. But the hand! The boy's first outcry was a rueful laugh, as he swung toward them holding out the hand, half in appeal but half as if to keep the life from spilling. Then the boy saw all. Since he was old enough to know, big boy doing a man's work, though a child at heart, he saw all spoiled. "Don't let him cut my hand off, the doctor. When he comes, don't let him, sister." So, but the hand was gone already. The doctor put him in the dark of either. He lay and puffed his lips out with his breath, and then the watcher at his pulse took fright. No one believed. They listened at his heart. Little, less, nothing. And that ended it. No more to build on there. And they, since they were not the one dead, turned to their affairs. A dramatic monologue that follows a young boy cutting firewood with a buzzsaw. The sun sets in the New England state of Vermont when the boy's sister announces the time for dinner. The announcement caused the boy to get excited and lose his grip on the buzzsaw. That buzzsaw then jumped out of his hand and wounded his hand severely. While the blood was spilling from his hand, he begged his sister to stop the doctor from amputating his hand. But in the process, he realized something. He wasn't going to survive. He's lost too much blood. When the doctor put him under using an anesthetic, he actually died. And once the situation concluded, everyone just continued to go about their business. Personally, I didn't find this poem very interesting until supper was said, and events kicked off. When the saw jumped at the boy's hand, the story immediately caught me. I couldn't stop thinking about how helpless he must have been during the situation, and how much pain and suffering he was going through. Yet, thinking about how his family just disregarded him after that, it saddened me. This poem managed to get me emotionally invested in its events. I was able to relate to that feeling of hopelessness. That feeling that nobody cared for you. A feeling that I felt too often in my life. But there was also a small feeling of happiness within me, because although no one acknowledged the young boy after his death, he was able to die with dignity. He died knowing that the situation was out of his control and accepted his fate. It didn't matter what the others around him thought. All that mattered is what he thought within himself. Now, to understand the theme of this poem, you have to understand the title. The title, Out, is actually alluding to Shakespeare's Macbeth. It references Macbeth's speech after the death of his wife, where he makes multiple comments on the frailty and pointlessness of life. This draws connections between the themes of both the play, Macbeth, and the poem Out. The main theme being the idea of human helplessness. How there are a lot of situations where you just can't do anything about what is going on. You are helpless to change your fate. How the boy in the poem, he may have cut himself by accident, but after that there was nothing more he could do. He couldn't change his situation. Identifying the speaker and audience of the dramatic monologue is not an easy feat. It could be someone sorting through the events of the past for, let's say, an article. Or it could be Robert Frost himself, seeing as he had an event like this happen in the past. But I believe that the narrator was a neighbor who observed the events from elsewhere. Someone looking past on the event and trying to understand what exactly happened within milliseconds. Someone who starts out concerned for the boy, but ends up being emotionally disconnected at the end of the tragic event. Because no reference is made to any sort of audience in the poem, the reader is likely the audience. In lines 10, 11, and 12 of the poem, the narrator wished the family would give the boy the half hour that a boy counts so much when saved from work. These lines illustrate that the narrator was concerned for the boy, possibly making a personal connection to the fact that the boy is young and working. Although, as the poem continues, that story changes. The speaker never scolds the family for completely disregarding the boy in the end of the poem, while the speaker themselves seems emotionally detached from the tragic events that are happening in front of them, making no comment on how horrific the events are. The speaker thinks the same as the family and removes any emotions from the tragic parts of the poem. This allows the reader to fill the gaps in the poem with their own emotions. Frost uses literary devices to great effect in this dramatic monologue. In the third line of the poem, alliteration is used in the words sweet-scented stuff. In the first line of the poem, automatopoeia is used in the words buzz and rattled. These words bring industrial sounds into the poem and help set the mood. A metaphor is used in the 22nd line of the poem, to keep the life from spilling. Life is compared to blood spilling out of the hand. Imagery is used to great effect to set the mood and setting in a semi-industrial or rural New England. The stove-length sticks of wood in line 2, the sunset far into Vermont in line 6, and the idea of a woman calling to her family for supper all help set the mood. All of these literary devices are nice, but the literary device that Frost uses most effectively in this poem is personification. The buzzsaw is personified to such an extent that it's almost akin to a major character in the poem. The saw snarls in the first line and leaps in the 16th. This personification draws the blame for the injury away from the boy, who is still a child at heart. The only notable other aspect of this poem is the iambic pentameter that is used in most of the lines, although in the case of line 27, Frost interrupts this meter to signify a terrible moment in the poem. And with that final statement, I bid you all adieu.